Now, you probably have heard it said that practice makes perfect. And that sounds so good. The problem is it's just not true. If you practice the wrong thing, you're not going to get closer to perfection. You're simply going to make the wrong thing your default way of living. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. And one of the most frustrating things to me is about training my own horse is that I want him trained yesterday. Unfortunately, I only get to work with my trainer every couple of months. That means the rest of the time, he's just relying on me. This means, unfortunately, I spend a lot of time practicing the wrong way. And then I catch myself wondering, why isn't he getting it? And then it hits me. I'm getting exactly what I'm teaching him. See, the problem isn't the horse. The problem is the practice. When it comes to having greater faith, I wonder if that's not true for most of us, more than we like to admit. We're practicing the wrong thing. If you've ever been frustrated over your spiritual progress, your faith, you're going to love this talk. Every day, you and I are practicing something. You're practicing fear or you're practicing faith. You're practicing control or you're practicing trust. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. There's a familiar story in the Bible that teaches us a very surprising lesson. This is the story of the man who brought his demon-possessed son to Jesus to be healed. The story goes like this. 9 of the disciples were standing in a crowd with a man who had brought his son to Jesus to be healed. And when Jesus wasn't there, the father of the boy asked the disciples, "Heal my son." They couldn't. A crowd quickly gathered. In the crowd were some of the religious leaders. I can only imagine the heckling they were taking. "Oh, you can't do it, huh?" They were arguing with the disciples. Enters Jesus. When the crowd saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with awe, and they ran to greet him. Jesus asked, "What's all the arguing about?" Well, the father of the boy was first to speak. "Teacher, I brought my son to you, and your disciples couldn't heal him. He's possessed by an evil spirit that won't even let him talk. And whenever the spirit seizes him, it just throws him to the ground violently. Then he foams at the mouth, he grinds his teeth, and he becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast out the spirit, but they couldn't do it." And hearing the man, Jesus expressed, like a sigh, deep frustration. Frustration that was pointed not at the people, at the disciples. "How long must I put up with you?" he asked. Reading between the lines, Jesus is really asking, how long is it going to take? How many miracles will I have to perform before you get me? And those standing nearby brought the boy to Jesus. As soon as the evil spirit saw Jesus, it threw him to the ground, and Jesus said, "Man, how long has this been going on?" The father said, "Since he was a boy." And then the dad pleaded, "Have mercy on us and help us." Then he added these final words, "If you can." Now, the man's statement was huge. Jesus responded incredulously, "If I can." And we Christians, we don't like to admit that we have areas of our life where we simply don't believe God. The problem is that we're not convinced that we can trust him. Now, Jesus' response is pointed. If I can. The Father knew that he'd crossed the line, and he had. Now, here's something I've noticed. We Christians, we've normalized doubt. We've baptized it. We've excused it. We live with it. I've been told so many times, well, everyone doubts, don't they? We've grown so accustomed to doubt that we no longer question it. We've treated doubt like the weather, like it's something you endure instead of something you confront. It's time that Christians stop enduring it and start confronting it. It's time that we stop making peace with our doubts and start making war against them. Jesus reacted strongly to doubt, not because he was mad, because he just knows doubt keeps us from experiencing his best. If I can, the author of Hebrews tells us why doubt is so damaging. He wrote, "Without faith, it's impossible to please God." Impossible, not difficult, impossible. Jesus' half-brother, James, told us, "Let not the man who doubts think that he shall receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways." Doubt doesn't mean you don't believe in God. Doubt means you don't believe God. Every time you doubt God's love, you rehearse unbelief. Every time You trust God's love, you rehearse faith, and eventually what you rehearse becomes how you behave. Practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. I know you believe in God. You wouldn't be here today listening to this if you didn't. The question is, when you're experiencing a trial in life, do you believe God loves you and He will work even this out for good? When your marriage is in a mess, are you more likely to get angry and withdraw? Or do you seek wisdom and grace from above? When your finances are in the red, or are you more likely to turn to MasterCard or the master in charge? And at the root of every fear is the question, can I trust God? This is something every Christian has to wrestle with. I've got to come to the place where I trust in His love, even when I don't know His plan or understand it. What do you mean if I can? Jesus then adds, for a person that believes, anything is possible. And the father, hearing this, instantly cried out, I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. Don't miss this. At that humble request, Jesus answered both prayers of the man. He healed his son and He helped his unbelief. There are three practices that come out of this story that will help you make trust a permanent way of life. Here's the first. Practice confession. Recognize and confess all unbelief. Every time you catch yourself default to fear, confess it. Don't normalize it. Don't excuse it. Every time you catch yourself doubting, just recall Jesus' response to the boy's father. If I can, confess it. One of the places the enemy has gained so much ground in the Christian life is in the area of what it means to trust God. We think that trusting God means that we believe God's going to give us what we need. You know, that job we need, or put that check in the mail, or that illness He's going to heal. We don't say it, but we believe that if He doesn't do it that way, then there's no way in the world that I can be happy. There's no way in the world I can be satisfied and live a fulfilled life. Listen to this closely, please. You do not have to know what God will do to know how God will respond. Let me say it again. You do not have to know what God will do to know how God will respond. He always responds in love. Most of us struggle not because we don't believe in God, we struggle because we don't believe God. Here's what a confession could look like. Father, I confess that I haven't believed You. I know You are my Father, and I haven't lived like it. I've taken control instead of trusting. I've lived in fear instead of in faith. Father, I believe. Help me overcome my unbelief. Now here's the second practice. It will change your life. Practice declaring the truth. This is the practice of replacing a lie with truth. Listen again to Jesus' words. If you believe, anything is possible. It isn't just that one thing is possible, it's that anything is possible. He can do something that you never imagined as possible. Anything is possible. That income you think you can't live without, anything is possible. That conversation you're scared to death to have, anything is possible. That ministry or that business you're afraid to start or you're afraid will fail, anything is possible. Listen to Romans 8:28 and 29 again. I know you know it. And we know that God causes everything to work together for good for those who love God and are called according to His purpose for them. For God knew His people in advance, and He chose them to become like His Son, so that His Son would be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. See, this passage gives us an incredible promise to enjoy, but it has a premise that we have to fulfill. The promise is that God works everything together for our good, everything. The premise that we must live in accordance with His calling, loving God and living for His purposes while being conformed to the image of His Son. Now, this is what that looks like in real life. We are going to go through life seeking to honor God. Things will happen to us, things that we don't understand and often don't like. And while that is happening, we trust and we rest assured that God is still writing the story, and it ends in something good. It's why we love the Psalms so much. It's why the Psalms have been so important to Christians throughout the ages. We're watching a man wrestle with his doubts while learning to rest in his God, his love and faithfulness. Psalm 13, David wrote, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me? Will you forget me forever? Will you hide your face from me, Lord?" And then before he saw a change in his circumstances, before he drifted into the depths of doubt and despair, he felt this tug of a rope tied to the anchor of his soul. And then he says, "But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation." David didn't know what God would do, but he knew how God would respond. David didn't just believe in God, he believed God. How do we get to that place in our life? How do we get to where no matter what happens in life, we believe that God is always acting in our best interest and we rest in his love and faithfulness? We practice declaring the truth. In this short story, Jesus gives us an anchor for our soul. It's the belief that anything is possible with God for the person that believes. What does that declaration look like? Like this: "Father, I know that you are God, that nothing's too difficult for you. I know that you love me. I know that you have a plan and a purpose for my life, and that you're doing a great work in me, making me more and more like your Son, Jesus Christ. Father, I believe with you anything is possible." See, that's a declaration you can write out and hang on your refrigerator and repeat it daily. Stop rehearsing your doubts and start declaring the truth. You're ready for the third practice, the practice of demonstration. Practice demonstrating your faith. This is where the magic happens. This is that part of the story that so many have missed. This is that part that grabs me. Though this boy's father had been disappointed by Jesus' disciples, he continued to hope in Jesus. And because of that, Jesus didn't just heal his son, but he helped the man's unbelief. When you believe that with God anything is possible, you don't go away. You just keep asking, you keep seeking, you keep knocking, because you know that you might not get what you think you want, but you'll always get what his love demands. Anything is possible. And every time you practice belief, you interrupt your doubts, making belief permanent. This is the practice that will set you up to live the life that God created you to live and to love. When you stop doubting God's love, doubt begins to die. God begins to show up in ways that you never imagined. Practice won't make your faith perfect, but I promise it will make it permanent. Here's how to put this into practice today. Pick one area of your life where you're tempted to doubt, to operate in fear over faith. I'm not talking about some giant thing. I'm talking about some small thing. I'm talking about a battle that you've got enough faith to go after. There was a time when I led a church that was dying. I believed it was impossible to turn that church back around to health and growth under my leadership. That was too big for me. I couldn't get my faith around it. God led me to something smaller. He showed me a win that I could get. I had this habit of running from debate. If I thought someone was smarter than I or more educated than I, so I didn't get in very many debates. And God challenged me not to run though. He brought someone into my life that was very successful, highly educated, and that person challenged something I'd said. Well, I wanted to laugh and blow them off and run away, but I remembered a promise, and so I stayed in the debate. Now looking back, I don't have a clue what we debated or how it even turned out. I just remember staying in the debate. It was nothing about proving that I was smart enough to debate. It was everything to do that God was worthy of my trust. I did it, and he proved it, and something inside my soul shifted. I began to believe God for more and more, to trust him for more and more. I've repeated that practice of confession, of my unbelief, of declaring the truth and demonstrating my faith over and over and over, many times. And today I believe that with him, all things are possible. Not only did I learn to trust God during the debate, but I learned to trust him to restore that church to health and growth, even through me. He did. I don't struggle, and you don't struggle because you don't believe in God. You struggle because you don't believe God. If we fail to develop the practice of believing God every time, the very practice God designed to bring us peace and joy, that practice that we develop will lead to frustration. We would do well to answer the question, how long will it be before you trust Him? What does God have to do before you finally get Him? You don't have to know what God will do to know how God will respond. He always responds from love. Like with my horse, every action teaches something. Tomorrow morning before your feet hit the floor, your soul will begin practicing something, fear or faith, scarcity or trust, self-reliance or dependence on God. See, every thought is a repetition. Every decision is a rehearsal. Every day is another practice. So practice believing God, because practice doesn't make perfect. It just makes permanent. I hope this talk has helped you today. If it has, please share it with someone else who needs to hear it. If you need help growing in your faith, reach out to me. And thanks again. And until next time, may the Lord help you to live that life that you were born to love.